What's going on, guys? This is the Wobblefit, and welcome to Mechanics Monday, a series where I pick a mechanic to analyze each week that may be underexplored or unknown to players in the VGC community. This week, we'll be looking at many of the bizarre properties surrounding Encore, a move that regularly sees use in VGC. Let's start with the basics. When Encore is used on a Pokemon, it forces the target into repeating the move it used last for 3 additional turns. In VGC, Encore has been historically seen as a way to punish some of the most powerful moves in the format, like Protect and Fake Out. Encore is blocked by Protect, but it does notably go through Substitute with no issues. Additionally, certain attacks are immune to the locking effect of Encore. Encore fails when used versus Encore itself, Transform, Struggle, Mimic, Sketch, and any move that calls another attack, which I have here on the screen. Notably, this list includes Nature Power and Sleep Talk, which are both relevant in competitive play. For example, suppose you wanted to Encore Whimsicott into Nature Power as terrain was about to expire, forcing it to use the much weaker Tri-Attack in the following turns. Because Encore fails on Nature Power, this play would not be available to you. Let's begin our analysis of Encore with what I like to call Encore Priority Conservation. When a Pokemon is encored into attack that has different priority than the attack it used previously, the priority of the attack is that of the most recent move. The classic example of this involves Whimsicott and Terrakion. After using Whimsicott's beat up on Terrakion to boost its attack thanks to Terrakion's Justified ability, the opponent may send in their next Pokemon with the intent of outspeeding and KOing the huge threat in front of them. Scizor here is likely to opt for Bullet Punch, for example. By using Quick Attack and Encoring our own Terrakion, however, the priority of Quick Attack is conserved, but the Encore still lets Terrakion use Rock Slide. Basically, this gives Terrakion a one-time priority Rock Slide to deal enormous damage to the Scizor. Of course, you don't have to do this on your ally. Encore Priority Conservation can be used in many different situations to cause your opponent to mismanage the order of their attacks. Earlier, I mentioned that you can't Encore an opposing Pokemon into Struggle. In a related mechanic to this, you cannot Encore a Pokemon into a move that has run out of PP, and if a Pokemon runs out of PP while under the effects of Encore, Encore will wear off at the end of the turn. To demonstrate, here I have had Salamence locked into Draco Meteor for a while now. I just reapplied Encore on Draco Meteor's last PP, and as you can see, Encore wears off at the end of the turn after its final use of the attack. This is important to be aware of if, say, you are trying to win on round timer by forcing your opponent to repeat a useless attack until the time runs out for the round. Additionally, this mechanic offers good reason not to PP max certain moves in game. For example, on my top 8 2016 US Nationals team, my Bronzong knew the move Gravity, which I would click at most once or twice in a single game. Because I didn't need the extra PP, and never anticipated needing it in a PP-based Struggle War, I opted not to give Gravity any PP ups, in case I needed to break out faster from an Encore lock. With the new timer mechanics, however, a PP-based Struggle War isn't unreasonable to see in VGC, so be mindful of PP maxing Pokemon that can potentially end up in those situations. One mechanic that might seem obvious to some may still catch players off guard if you're new to the mechanics of Encore. In order for Encore to successfully lock a target into an attack, the target must have at least used one attack successfully prior to the Encore. For example, this is the first turn of the game, where Porygon 2 has not yet used a successful attack. If Whimsicott here taunts the Porygon 2 and prevents it from using Trick Room, it won't be able to Encore it on the following turn, because it never got to choose a move. In a related way, if Porygon 2 went for an Ice Beam first, then tries to set Trick Room on Whimsicott's Taunt, the following Encore will force Porygon 2 into using Ice Beam, not Trick Room. The interaction between Z-moves and Encore is something many players looked into at the beginning of Pokemon Sun and Moon, hoping to create an easy-to-use strategy of blasting people with multiple Z-moves. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. You can't Encore a Z-move in any way, and not even the base of the Z-move gets Encored. To reiterate, you also cannot Encore a Z status move, or its base status move either. For example, if Bronzong here uses Z Trick Room, the opposing Whimsicott cannot Encore it into Trick Room on the following turn to undo the Twisted Dimensions. It just straight up fails. In addition, you have the option of using your Z move even when under the effects of Encore. For example, even though this Garchomp was Encored into Swords Dance on the previous turn, it still has the option to total this Togedemaru with a Tectonic Rage on this turn. Finally on our list is by far the most confusing mechanic of Encore, Encore's random target selection. There are a lot of misconceptions with how the random target selection of Encore works, and I've heard all kinds of misinformation about it, even among top players in the VGC community, so I hope that's explained clearly and thoroughly in this video. Here's the general idea. If you Encore Pokemon into a single target move on the same turn that it selected a different move, the Encored move will target either opponent randomly on that turn only. Suppose I just used Moonblast with my Tapu Fini, and now I want to use Muddy Water. Of course, for testing purposes, I'll be Encoring my Tapu Fini into the original Moonblast. I have two screens here to show that the conditions I tested this in were exactly the same. If you'll notice on your left, Tapu Fini's Moonblast hits the opposing Pokemon on its left, but on the right, Tapu Fini's Moonblast lands on the opposing Pokemon on its right. Here's another scenario. Suppose I just used Heal Pulse on Tapu Fini's ally, and on the following turn, I want to use Heal Pulse again on myself. Because I didn't use a different attack here, Heal Pulse will successfully hit my ally with no trouble at all. Here's a related scenario to our previous Heal Pulse example. Suppose I used Heal Pulse on Tapu Fini's ally, and on the following turn, I tried to use Moonblast on the opponent. In a similar way to how our first example worked, Tapu Fini instead randomly Heal Pulses one of its opponents at random. Let's take this a step further, however. What happens when you Heal Pulse an ally, then Moonblast the ally again? Will Tapu Fini get to attack its partner slot, or not? Spoilers, it won't. Just like before, even if you targeted yourself with a different attack, Encore still randomly chooses one of the opponents to be the recipient of Moonblast here. Again, to emphasize, this means the random effect of Encore only applies if your opponent switches up their attack on the same turn you Encore them into a different move. How can you apply this to your VGC play? One example would be managing your odds. You can't force a 50-50 scenario with Encore to try to make your opponent attack the wrong slot if they use the same attack. For example, Tapu Fini here just protected from a threatening Horn Leech, but it needs to be able to get off Moonblast on the Tapu Bulu if it wants to win this game. Tapu Bulu is already confirmed faster than our Tapu Fini. Because Tapu Bulu is just going to Horn Leech again this turn, you can't force to 50% to make Tapu Bulu attack Togedemaru with Encore, which means that a Zing Zap flinch would give you your highest odds of taking this game. Being mindful of when you can and can't use this random effect of Encore to your advantage is important when you're in last-ditch situations with Encore. That's all for this week's Mechanics Monday. How many of these mechanics did you already know about Encore? Feel free to tell me in the comments below. Additionally, feel free to comment suggestions of mechanics you'd like to see me explain in the future. Until next time, have a good one.